video as well.
Good.
All right. All right. So I am here now with Bill Rehor. Did I say it right?
Yeah, pretty much. Hey, how's it
We,
going?
we literally just practiced like 30 seconds ago. So I was hoping I didn't mess it up
Yeah,
already.
yeah.
Things are great. Things are awesome. So you are one of the people that make up Beadle and Grimm.
Yeah,
Okay. You want
yeah.
to talk a little bit about your role in the company so people sort of know who you are and where you're coming from?
Yeah, sure. So there are five of us who started the company. Matt Lillard, John Ciccolini, my brother Charlie, and Paul Shapiro. And so the five of us started and owned the company, and it's been interesting. I think the sensible thing would have been for us to all assign ourselves to really specific roles and keep doing those things over and over again and actually get good at them. But that's not the way we've handled it so far. So we all do a little bit of everything. We're all involved in the creative process. We kind of take turns running different projects. But I was the lead on the Avernus box.
Oh.
So I am just now kind of coming down from this really intense 5 or 6 month period of my life. So, and I'm kind of taking a back seat on Eberron. So I'm the person who now has a little bit of free time on their hands to come on and chat.
Okay, great. So instead of having specific tasks that everybody sort of gets good at, is everybody focuses on one sort of product at a time and cycles through that way?
Yeah, I mean, we found it's been really important to have one person who has their head in that one project 100% of the time and
Okay.
is making sure that all the artists are completing things on time and we're getting everything into production on time and just kind of overseeing the whole thing. But everybody's involved in one way or another, and we all have our little tasks inside of that mechanism.
Okay, great. So does that mean you're the person that's responsible for this? Are you the one who made that happen?
So I can't take credit for the plushie other than the fact that I ultimately said yes.
Oh, okay.
The plushie actually, well, that was Matt's idea. He was super, super excited about doing a plushie. And I admit that the rest of us were pretty reluctant initially. But the thing that won us over with Lulu is that um, it's really an integral part of that adventure. So it's not a superfluous thing that we
Right.
threw in because it's cute. It really does play a role. And when you're playing that game, it's kind of easy to forget that she's with you.
Mm-hmm.
And having just sort of a reminder on the table as you're playing that, hey, she's there, and she's actually pretty darn useful at times.
Right.
It actually does have playability, and that's always one of our guiding principles. We want to make sure that when we're including things, it really is enhancing the game experience first and foremost. And then if it's also super cute and cuddly, then that's a bonus.
Sure. Yeah, no, and I don't know like that a plush character like that would have worked in the previous adventures, but Lulu kind of is so integral to this adventure and is also so cute. It kind of works, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Was it what?
Right. Right. Good. Good. I'm glad. That was
Oh
our hope.
no, no. I mean, I am absolutely going to be doing this over top of the DM screen whenever Lulu talks. Like, I mean, it's a natural, right?
Right. Yeah, you got to.
Uh,
And the wings kind of flutter. It's
yeah.
it's adorable.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
you've also got you also tend to do like a handful of the miniatures and things as well, right? So particularly the useful things that are otherwise hard to get, that kind of thing,
Right.
right?
That's a big
That
handful.
is a handful. Was there thought?
So that
Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, I was going to say that was actually one of the very first things that we decided on for Avernus. It's so we have a really interesting process with our calendar because in the summer of 2018, we found out the basic storyline for Avernus.
Okay.
We didn't even know it was called Avernus back then. It had a code name. I think it was called Eclipse at the time. So we got like a short story guide that had some characters and some story elements and sort of a basic framework. And that's kind of all we get for the first several. So, we're trying to get some kind of a head start on things as much as we can, because by the time that we get the full text, we're really running behind. We get it very late, and then we're racing to the finish line. So we're trying to kill some things off early on in the process. And the Infernal Machines were clear from that initial little story guide. It was clear the Infernal Machines were going to be a big part of it. And they had already started talking to WizKids about doing those machines. So we immediately got involved with that and said, we got to do this. We got to have something with that. And they were incredibly gracious and cooperative and helpful. And they're just terrific, terrific people to work with.
Right.
And they really wanted not only to include it in our box, but they, offered to do this extra thing to make it special, to give us that front piece that nobody else can get.
Yeah, that bit there with the saw on it.
Yeah, the Wheel of Death, man. So that was great. That was such a great first start. And when we saw their mock-ups for that, we were like, okay, this is going to be an awesome box.
That's great. Yeah, we've jumped straight into the Avernus box talking about it. I had intended on going back and starting from the beginning of the company and all that. And we can still go back to it. But now that we're talking about things, we can talk about that too. And I think it gives some insight into sort of the process as well. So when you're putting together these things, when this Infernal War Machine was put together, did you have much input into how it was going to work, or was it WizKids saying, "Here's what we're thinking, and that's how it works"? Or what was that like? How does that happen?
Yeah, so that's one of the very few pieces that we didn't have full control over. We're not a minis company. It's not something that's easy to get into, and there's this really collaborative company that does it and does it really well. So right now it makes more sense for us to kind of let them take the lead on that. And so the only thing we were really involved in was, what can we do with that front piece that would be really cool to make it sort of unique to us. And those discussions are already starting to happen for the 2020 box. And, again, we're working from a story guide. We don't have the full text yet. They don't have the full text yet either. So we're all trying to figure out what would be a cool thing to be able to do together next year. And we have some really, really cool ideas. I think it's going to be exciting.
Okay. So is the customizable or the customized front piece, is that why it comes off? Or do you know why WizKids made it so that the front piece comes off?
Yeah, I think their idea was that if you have that, you could switch them off and take one off and put another on and make it look different and all that. I think.
Okay. And I assume the back part doesn't come off. It's got a seam on it, but I didn't want to force it and mess something up.
The top does come off.
Does it? It's supposed to?
Yeah, the top is supposed to come off. I know it gets a little sticky here.
It's on there real tight, and I didn't want to force it and break something out of my $500 box. Oh yeah, excellent.
Yeah. So it has, and it's it's great for giving you a sense of how big this darn thing is. You say big vehicle, but then you put it next to a one of your regular figures, and you realize that, oh my God, this thing is massive.
Right. So the process is something to the effect of you get a story Bible or a story outline or whatever from Wizards once they agree to partner with you on it, right? And so then it's, well, what can we start putting together from that outline?
Yeah, I mean, we try to, like I said, we're just trying to get ahead of the curve. So, I'm trying to remember. I'm pretty sure that the soul coins were pretty well defined in the story guide. There it is.
Yep, I'm keeping all the
So we
props
kind
handy.
of knew that we kind of knew that was going to be part of it. We knew that there was going to be a big infernal contract that was going to play a big role
Was that
in moving you from.
this one?
That's the,
Yeah.
yeah.
One of my
That
links.
beauty.
One of my links came off, but I found it so I can reattach it. I think. So.
Okay, that's a drag.
It still kind of looks
yeah,
cool
so,
dangling, but yeah.
Yeah. So there were some nice little pieces in there that we could get rolling on. But honestly, the big stuff we just couldn't really pull the trigger on until it was maybe I think maybe April or May of this year.
Okay.
That we really got enough details that we were able to really start going on some of the specific stuff. So it's once we get going, it's a real race to the finish line for us to get this thing out.
But it sounds like the things that you were able to get a head start on are the kinds of things that are the bigger sort of physical props that might take a little more time. Does that seem? That's why
that's absolutely true. Although it's funny, we're learning as we go, and we've only done 3 of these, and so we've still got a lot to learn. But it surprises you what things take the longest. Those DM screens.
These
are so time consuming.
Oh yeah.
Because not only from a design perspective, because we're trying to put together all the different charts in there and trying to pick what's worthwhile, and you've only got so much real estate, and so you're picking and choosing what's going to be in there. And then they all have custom art on them, and so we have to commission the art and get that, and then to get that approved and get the inside approved. And then the production part of it, of making a really good quality DM screen, it actually takes a while.
Yeah.
So that was a big challenge this time. Getting both DM screens done in time was a real near thing for us. So that's something we've learned, that from now on we have to push that to the very top of the priority list to make sure that gets done first, so it doesn't hold us up.
Well, and there are other companies that do like custom DM screens for the adventures. I think Gale Force 9 has done custom DM screens for a lot of the WotC adventures. But they don't, from my understanding, they don't do these sort of thick, hardbound sort of DM screens. They're the thinner sort of cardstock thing.
And I don't think, we love Gale Force 9, great company, and they do great work. I don't think they commission original art for theirs either.
Yeah, I don't think so.
So ours it's just a different kind of product, but ours are a little bit more labor intensive than I think what they're doing.
Sure, yeah. Well, I was impressed. I mean, these DM screens are equal in quality to the one you buy from Wizards of the Coast, right? And that's just the generic one. So I was impressed to have a DM screen that's that high a quality that may get used for 3-4 months and then it gets shelved.
Yeah, right. Well, with the Baldur's Gate screen and the Waterdeep screen and even the Saltmarsh screen, we do try to design them so that they have some usability beyond that particular box. Right. So, if you want to run other adventures out of Baldur's Gate, that's one of the reasons we thought it was really important to include both screens, is because Baldur's Gate it's a great location to run adventures in, and you might do a lot in there, just like a lot of people are still running homebrew campaigns out of Waterdeep.
Sure. My current campaign is
I talk to people at cons who are like, we played Strahd 5 years ago, and we decided to make that our home base after that, and all of our adventures go out of that locale. And I'm like, all right, yeah,
absolutely,
I get that.
Absolutely,
these are cool worlds that they're creating, and a lot of people want to stay in them after the adventure's done. Sure. So, God bless.
Yeah, absolutely. So you start with this early outline. You figure out what you can put together, and does it always happen to be the sort of heavier props like that, the soul coins and the miniatures and that kind of stuff that comes early, or do sometimes you throw those together late?
Generally, because we don't have the text.
Right.
it's hard to do anything that's really seriously text based. So it tends to be things that they've already created art for, like the Soul Coin or the Infernal Machine, where we can go, okay, we've got the art, we know exactly what that's supposed to look like. Let's run with that for a little while, and then we can get those things kind of done. Frees us up later.
And then you're just sitting and waiting, or probably working on other boxes at that time, overlapping, right? But then you're sitting and waiting for the text to come out, right?
So in this case, we did some work on Avernus, and then Saltmarsh kicked in at the beginning of the year, and we were working really hard on Saltmarsh to get that done. Right. And it timed out pretty well that just as Saltmarsh was getting ready to ship, we were getting the details on Avernus, so we were able to kind of transition from one into the other.
Right. And then
it's getting more challenging as we do more things, for sure.
Sure. And then you've got the difficult. I mean, putting together the text-based stuff it's not just taking the chapters and breaking them up into the books, right? It's also then creating the menus and the maps and all these other, the little handouts and things, right? There's all these little things that you put together. Do all of those sort of just, you hit the ground running and you start coming up with ideas and throwing as much of it together as you can as soon as you get the text?
Yeah, the day that we get the actual text is probably the most fun we have as a company. It's also the reason we never get to play these adventures, because we don't have time to all sit down and run Avernus for a few months and figure out, how it plays. The day we get it, we all have to sit down and read it cover to cover, hopefully a couple of times, so we've really got an understanding of it. And then we all get together in a room and we just start making spreadsheets, and we're just like throwing ideas out of which maps seem exciting and which, there was a comment on page 96 about a thing that maybe we could hand out to people. And I was actually going back and looking at the old lists and stuff, and there's there's some really cool stuff on there that we weren't able to get to this time around. But
yeah, I was wondering, how do you decide sort of what gets made and what doesn't get made? Like, how do you find out that I get a plush Lulu, but I don't get a miniature Lulu to put on the map?
Yeah. It's sort of a killing your babies kind of thing. Right. We get a list of things we love, and then the list would be like a $3,000 box, and then we have to say, okay, well, how can we make this workable?
Right.
And
it's already a hard enough sell at 500, right? So
right, yeah. It's not easy. We're already kind of high end. So, I think we start to look for reasons to not include things. That's kind of the way it works. So, for instance, one of the ideas that we had early on was how cool it would be to have sulfur-scented candles in the box.
Oh, that would be cool.
We thought that was going to be a great idea. Put them out on the table, and they smell like hell, and wow, wouldn't that be great? Turns out, Hasbro isn't really excited about you putting candles in a box full of paper.
Well, weird.
So, yeah, I know. So that gets crossed off the list. It was just sort of, we said that, the Infernal Machine is a big, expensive item, and we decided, okay, that's going to be our mini budget. We'd rather do one amazing mini than do a collection of smaller ones like we did for Waterdeep. We just really wanted one thing that was really unique and would blow people's minds, and you couldn't get anywhere else. So that kind of eliminated the idea of including to play out on the map, but then something else got eliminated, and that sort of created a budget spot where we could say, okay, yeah, maybe we do a big Lulu, and that'll be more. Sure. And again, we do try to think of everything in terms of playability, and that's how Lulu made it into the box, because it really, at the end of the day, we really did feel like it was going to contribute something.
Sure. And in some cases, like, the decisions seem fairly easy, right? You've got your cards for the creatures and the NPCs and whatever, and you pretty much cover every single stat and art that you might need for every creature that's mentioned in the book, right? So those seem like the easy decisions, and then there's the tougher decisions of okay, we can't get everything of everything in, right? And so I get where you'd have to make some choices. I also noticed that you made some choices in terms of the format for different things. So, for example, the Dungeon of the Dead 3 gets these sort of card types of maps, whereas all of the other maps are rolled up in the big tube. I didn't unpack the big tube for this, but
Right.
So how do you make the decision about what gets into what form?
Yeah, I mean, there's no perfect answer for these things. Again, we try to think about it in terms of what's going to make the DM's job the easiest. So, in the case of the Dead 3 map, when we looked at a 24 by 30 space, which is the size of most of our battle maps,
right?
We just couldn't fit very much of the Dead 3 map onto that because it's kind of big and it's kind of funky and stretches out in different directions. It's a hard one to condense.
Okay.
So our thought process was, if these are primarily battle maps, let's take the rooms where you're most likely to be fighting something and really focus on those and give you a really nice version of those sections of the dungeon. So that's what we did. And if we had put it on a regular map, we just wouldn't have been able to include as much of it. I don't know if it was the right decision or not. And we loved getting feedback from people, and I'll be interested to see what people say. But that's kind of what we're focused on for that. And Avernus was really challenging map-wise in general because there are a lot of really big areas that we're trying to cover. And so everything took a lot of thought, and we had to make some compromises for space. And I hope that when people play it out, they feel like the compromise, we made the right choices. Yeah. And if not, let us know, and we'll try to do better.
Well, and that's where I guess the timeline of the whole thing is the real sticking point there, right? Because that's where if you did have time to actually play through it, you could sort of see which things were useful and which things weren't, whatever. But you've got to turn the whole thing around in a handful of months. So
yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, we have all been, we're all old men at this point, and
you're not the only one.
And we've been playing since the 70s. So I do think we have pretty good instincts about how things will play out, but that doesn't mean we're always right, and it doesn't mean that what works best for us is necessarily going to work best for every DM out there. Everybody's got to make these things their own, and hopefully we're just giving them a lot of tools to make things easy on them and make them look good as much as we can.
And in some cases, like I think your instincts played out well, because you talked about the giant maps, and you can't really have the giant maps, but you can throw in these sorts of things that I could very easily throw on my existing sort of blank map, and suddenly now I have the plains of Avernus, right? All I needed was a few little feature details to make it come to life.
Yeah, good. I'm glad. That was one of the things we were really insistent on, and we had never done anything like that, and there were a lot of different elements to putting it together, so it was very complicated and challenging, but I mean, when you play it, you realize that in that chapter 3, there are a lot of things that can happen out in the wastelands of Avernus that you, as a DM, you can't necessarily predict. They're going to go do their own things, and you don't know how things are going to play out and where they might end up meeting this person or that war band or whatever.
Right.
So we really felt like it was important to have something modular that you can adjust to fit whatever it is you're doing.
Have you ever, and I'm sure you have, and I want to talk at some point a little bit more about like future plans and how this whole process scales and where it goes.
Sure.
But you talk about some of these things that you couldn't put in the box for whatever reason, right? It didn't fit into the budget, or candles in a box full of paper didn't work for Hasbro's legal team, or whatever, right?
Right.
But you've got an online store. Did you ever think about just selling the candles, and then people can get some of the items a la carte to enhance their game?
We think about it. We are licensees of Wizards of the Coast, and there are some pretty strict barriers of what we can do and what we can't do.
Sure.
And when we're directly related to a Wizards product, and we actually really appreciate that, because reasons that's there is that they're very protective of every licensee's personal space.
Right.
So they don't want us doing something that's going to infringe on Gale Force 9, or WizKids doing something that's going to infringe on us. They want us all to have our own space and to focus on the things that we do really well, and let other people focus on the things that they do really well. And that's really important for us as a company, because we wouldn't want them telling some other company, hey, you can also do platinum editions, and then we're crossing over each other, and there's brand confusion, and that's not really good for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, it keeps us all really happy with each other. One of the main reasons that we decided to embark on this journey of creating this company was we all went to one of the early streaming events that Wizards hosted in Seattle, the one for Tomb of Annihilation, before they started doing live events in LA. And we met a lot of the other licensees there, and they were all so collaborative and so gracious and so eager to help each other out, and everything was, let's work together, and how can I help you, and what are you doing, and what can I help do to make it better, and you be on my show and we'll be on your show, and it's like, it's such a great community. And part of that's because they're all cool people, but I do think that part of that is because Wizards make sure that we're not competing against each other directly.
It's almost as if Wizards of the Coast is a company that's good at figuring out how to arrange things mechanically to get people to collaborate. To form a party
really
and work together, and do what we do for this hobby, right? So, very good.
Yeah.
So,
and thank God they have that approach, because
it works well.
We could have walked in and pitched this whole thing to them, and they could have said, "Wow, that sounds great. I think we'll do it ourselves."
Sure.
But they really love working with companies and letting them, go off and do things, as long as they show that they're competent and really in love with the product, right, then they are really great about empowering you to go do your thing.
Well, and they could also grant licenses to every single person to make whatever products that comes along, and probably make more money in the short term, but in the long term, they're not engendering themselves to the community and the fans. They're not engendering themselves as much that way towards the licensees. So that's probably a smart move, is to build that sort of collaborative space. So.
Yeah, and they take it really seriously. Now, they don't want that logo appearing on anything that doesn't meet their standards. They're putting out their review process, and that's exactly the way we want it.
Yeah, great. So then let's talk about what the plans are for future projects. Obviously, the platinum editions and that kind of stuff is going. Well, clearly, you can't tell me about what the next project is. Although, if you want to, you're welcome to. But we have many people that we talk to, including myself, that are under NDA with WotC anyway. So anything anybody may or may not know can't be discussed, right? But in general terms, you've done the silver edition. You've done a handful of 3 platinum editions now.
Yeah, 2 platinum editions so far,
So
and
so we're,
so right now we have. Oh, so
yeah, I was
okay.
gonna
Go
say.
ahead.
So
Sorry.
what's the plan in terms of these tiers? I think I heard in an interview or something once that there was talk maybe of gold editions some days, and maybe someday being able to offer all three sort of tiers for any given product. Where are we at in terms of that process? So
Okay, so the first thing is we are putting together our first gold box right now. That's for Eberron,
okay,
and that'll launch in February. And that's really exciting. First of all, because it's our first gold edition,
hmm
and second of all, because it's the first time we've worked with something that's primarily a source
yeah, it's
book.
not an adventure,
So, right, there is a small adventure in it, but mostly it's world building.
right?
And so that's kind of changed our approach. A lot of it's the same. There's going to be a ton of maps. We're breaking the book up into sections, which I think is super helpful for Eberron because there are sections of that book that are really player centric,
hmm
and there are sections that are DM centric. And I think by breaking, we make it a little more usable. Um, and there'll be some jewelry in it. There'll be a lot of maps. There'll be some in-world stuff for the adventure that is in there, which is a really cool little adventure. Um, but that's kind of a new experience for us. So there's that. That's going to be our first gold edition. We are doing another platinum edition for the big fall release, which, as I said, we're working on the story guide right now. We have some preliminary ideas for it, and we're waiting eagerly to get the full text.
Right.
And I can confirm, this was a recent decision, but I can confirm we are definitely going to do more than one tier for that box. So that's going to
Oh,
be our first time splitting up and offering at least 2 different tiers for one adventure, and we're going to see how that runs and see what that looks like for people. So we're
okay.
excited to see how that plays out.
Then
Um,
you can get some very
the,
clear comparisons between which tier has the bigger audience, or what have you, sort of where the popularity is too. So
yeah, and we're hoping that we never, this is always going to be a high end kind of niche thing that
sure,
isn't for everybody for every book. But we've never wanted to be elite or anything. We want to include people as much as we can. So
right,
we're really eager to find opportunities to get to lower price points where we still feel like we're putting out something that meets our standards and kind of fits our niche
right.
of the kind of product that we offer and what Beadle and Grimm's means to people. So anyway, so we'll do that. Without giving a whole lot of details, I will say we are hard at work on our first player-centric product for next year.
Okay,
Everything we've done so far has really been marketed towards a DM,
right.
which is great, and that was our initial goal with this company. But we're realizing, that we're still really only marketing to 1 out of 5 or
Right.
1 out of
There's a
6
lot more
people at
players
every
than there
game
are
table.
DMs. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got a really exciting idea for something for players that we're working with Wizards on. That'll be an official licensed product, and I think it's going to be really cool. So we're really excited for that. We're hoping to be able to debut that around Gen Con next year.
Okay.
And then towards the end of the year, hopefully we will be doing one other adventure. And I can't say what it is, but I think people are going to be really excited about it. So that we haven't decided what tier that's going to be at. We still have some work to do on that to decide exactly what we want to do with that, but it's going to be a cool project.
Cool. Excellent. So you talked a little bit about how you don't want it to be, you don't want the company to be elitist, so to speak, right? You want it to be accessible, but it is sort of high end, products. Right? That's what you're selling. When you're selling a single
Sure.
adventure for $500, that's a high end, fairly elite product, right?
Fair.
And I think that speaks to a little bit of sort of the mission of the company. What is Beadle and Grimm's mission then? If they're presenting or selling these really expensive items, but they're not. You don't want to be elitist. Then what is the mission of the company?
So it's a good question. So when we first took this idea to Wizards, our pitch to them was, we want to make a DM feel confident. We want to reduce their prep time, and we want to make them look awesome in front of their players and give their players a great experience. That's the primary goal. We've all DM'd at different times in our lives. We know how hard it is. When we first talked to Wizards, they said, look, there is no shortage in the world of people who want to play D&D. Mm-hmm. The shortage is of people who are willing to DM those games.
Right.
That's what people need. And so our primary mission coming out of the gate was, how do we encourage people to DM who have never done it before, or who don't like it or are scared of it? And then how do we make the existing DMs enjoy it more, reduce their prep time, make them feel better about what they're doing, create great games? We didn't walk out saying, what we want to do is make a $500 box. We said, right. We want to make this thing as cool as possible, and what is that going to take? That's, that really is where we're at. Look, I mean, I'm 50 years old. I've been playing since I was 11, I think. And I went through that period when I was in my teens and I had more time than money. Sure. And at that time in my life, I was the guy who hand wrote out the note from the evil overlord, and I put it in the oven to make the corners turn up and, spilled fake blood on it or whatever. That I was that guy. I was that DM for a long time. I'm not that guy anymore. I'm older. I have a family. I have a house, and I have a job. And I'm now at a time where I have more money than I have free time.
Right.
So for me, to have somebody who is going to prepare all this stuff for me and provide it in a way that I can feel proud of, that has a lot of value to me. And it's not for everyone, and I totally get that. We just hope that for people who are in that situation, they see some value of it and have some fun with it. Absolutely. That's all we can do,
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good approach. Recognize very clearly that the goal is not to expand and make this something that everybody has to have, right? But for people who have the money and don't have the time and want to make it awesome and still have the handouts and the props, it provides that.
And just to finish that out, we do try to sell some elements outside of the box. We sell the jewelry online on our website, so you can go, and if all you want is a soul coin, you can go on our website and you can just buy a soul coin and
you get get the badges. Are you selling the badges?
Yep, the badges are there. Yep. We still sell this stuff from Waterdeep, so if you want to go back and get some dragon coins from Waterdeep, that's all there. We did a pack of maps for an open source 5e game called Sea King's Malice, and that there's a map tube that we sell that it's actually a really cool set. It's 3 ship maps but they have the full layout on one side, and then on the back they have sort of the blank outline of the ships. And it's a dry erase, so you can draw in the map as you go. So, any DM who's running any kind of homebrew seafaring campaign of any kind can use those maps in their own thing. And so, we try to create things like that are at lower price points that can have that same effect, that can give a DM an opportunity to present something that's really cool and a little bit more high-end and more immersive and interactive for their players without having to go out and buy a big $500 box.
Right. Very cool. And I like the idea of the jewelry being available from the boxes because, like, these three badges are kind of awesome, and I'd kind of like to have them to give away to my players as souvenirs. But having one of each in the box, I can't do that. But if I can go out and buy 5 Flaming Fist badges, now everybody gets to be a member of the Flaming Fist. So,
oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's one we really wanted to make sure was available and got it up online because yeah, like you say, I mean, right there at the beginning, you're straight into the Flaming Fist, and it's great to be able to have everybody at the table wearing one of those suckers. It's fun.
Absolutely. Cool. So going way back then, I am under the impression that the company of Beadle and Grimm is named for a couple of characters, and that one of those characters is yours. Is that accurate?
That is absolutely correct. Yes.
So who are you, Beadle or Grimm?
I am Grimm, or I was Grimm for many years. That was one of our first big campaigns that John ran. That all the members of the company played together. So I ran Grimm, who was a big hulking barbarian out in the frozen wastes. And this was back in 3E and then eventually moved to 3.5. So he had a prestige class, if you remember those. He was a foe hunter, was the name of the prestige class. So he was a giant hunter who hunted the frost giants out in the frozen wastes. And Beadle was Matt's character, who was a dwarf thief / mage.
He spills ale on people from the miniature, right?
That's right. That's right. He was a horrible person, quite frankly. He was a braggart and a drunkard, and he and Grimm clashed like you would not believe. They were a wonderful contrast in personalities, which really made that game super fun and memorable. And I think, for both Matt and I, at least, I think that will always be, that will always live in our minds as maybe the most personal campaign that we've ever run. It was just a hell of a lot of fun, and because it was one of the first ones that we went on for a while with, it really resonated with us.
So, since the company is named after your character and Matt's character, were the two of you sort of the brain children that put this whole thing together? Is that where it started, or why your characters and not the other people's?
People aren't online right now, so I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
No, it was absolutely very much an equal thing with the 5 of us. It's just that a company name with 5 character names would have been really tiresome.
And those are the 2 that sounded the coolest?
Yeah, we didn't want to be Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. We needed to trim it down a little bit. So that's what we picked, and that went. It just kind of sounded good and fit well.
Very good. So we've gone a significant amount of time. It's almost been 45 minutes, and I told you it'd be about a half an hour, so I apologize for going so far over.
It's all good.
Rather than go into all of my other questions, which really there's just a few, but I wanted to finish with one question, and it has to do with the box, the book-shaped box that the whole thing comes in. The lid is like heavier than the rest of the box by like 2 times. Why is the lid so heavy? Tell me about that.
Okay, so originally the reason for that was because we wanted to build the soul coin into the top of the box. You've seen that, right? When you open it up,
it's embedded.
It's inset into the top. We just thought that would be a really cool effect. We were just looking for something, we think a lot about presentation and what it's going to be like to open this the first time and what that experience is like. So that was the first thing we did. But the other thing was, as we started to experiment with it and compare it to the Dragon Heist box, we just found that the cover of the Dragon Heist box felt a little It felt a little too lightweight to
Okay.
us. It felt a little not flimsy, but we wanted it to have a little bit more gravitas when you opened that darn thing.
Okay.
And so as they started to add thickness to it to accommodate the coin, we were like, "Oh, this is cool. Actually, this makes it feel cool when you open it. Let's go with that." So that's all it was. It was really just initially it was practical, but then it became a thing of I just like the way that feels. It makes the whole thing feel more sturdy and heavy and important when you open it.
Very good. All right. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me and to talk to all of our listeners. And this has been great. Is there anywhere that people should go to on the internet if they want to sort of follow what you're up to? I mean, Beadle and Grimm's website, I assume, but anywhere else that they can find you?
You know, I'm shockingly bad at social media,
Okay.
so but we do have a great people who run our Twitter account, and we do have their website where all of this stuff is available. And you know, I would say if you have any interest at all, sign up for the mailing list because my brother runs the mailing list, and he does a terrific job both of keeping abreast of what we're doing and making announcements. And also, he does a great job of answering people's questions and taking feedback. If you have suggestions for future boxes, things you like, things you didn't like, go to the website, email the support goblin, and let us know because we really are still in our infancy, and we love interacting with the fans and learning how to make things better. So bring it on.
Very good. Hopefully, people go and check all that out. And I thank you again for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, and let's do it again soon.